What's up, everybody? So I am about to tell you guys a story about my nutrition journey with Macrostax. But first, I have to give a lot of backstory so that I can get to the point of why I chose Macrostax and how it helped me. So backstory, let's backtrack to forever ago. Nutrition, has always been a huge part of my life as an athlete. So in high school is really when I started taking it seriously. I know that's crazy, but I brought my lunch to school every day. I brought snacks before practice. I drank protein drinks. You name it. Yes, I had cheat meals every now and then, but for the most part, I ate pretty healthy, and people would always be like, oh my gosh, Peyton's eating desserts, which yes, I eat desserts, but in modification. But then I got to college. My freshman year, I was at the University of Oklahoma. I kind of really didn't pay attention. I did pay attention to my diet, but not really. I wasn't really following. I wasn't doing paleo. I wasn't doing keto. I wasn't doing high protein, low carb. Like, I was just kind of eating healthy, but not to where it needed to be. So that year was a crazy year also. I ended up transferring to the University of Arkansas, and that's where I really started dialing in on my nutrition because it's an amazing program, the #1 program, and I was like, I'm good on the track, but everything else has to be on track and good as well. You can't just be showing up to practices and killing practices. You have to also be doing the work outside of practice. So that's when I really started experimenting with different diets. I tried paleo, which is low carb, low sugar, which for an athlete isn't very good because I wasn't getting the amount of carbs that I needed to make it through practices, to recover after practices, etc. And then I got hurt one year and I decided, okay, I'm injured, I can't run, I can't do anything. I'm about to eat like 50 grams of carbs, that's it. That's all I'm giving myself. So I did that. The number on the scale looked great. I was the lightest I'd ever been, but I felt terrible. I had no energy. I just looked really skinny, honestly. I've always been like fit, but I looked skinny. What else? I just felt like crap. And then I got back into training, and literally 2 to 3 weeks back into training, I tore my quad. And I was like, what the heck? Another freaking injury. And I really think it's because I wasn't eating properly, and I lost, and I got a DEXA scan, and on the DEXA scan, body fat was good, muscle mass had gone down a little bit from what it was before. So really my weight loss was from losing muscle mass. So as a sprinter, that's not a good thing. And so I was like, dang, okay, so I need to be eating a little bit more. So I started eating more carbs and a lot more protein, and got better. Started feeling better at practices. My strength came back just from all like the training 5 to 7 days a week, in the weight room 3 times a week. Things got better. So then, I did have, and I also had a decent season that year. I ran really well, but I will say after some races, like I was dead, like energy gone, depleted. And it's really truly because I don't think I was getting enough nutrition. So then after that, my last collegiate season, I went straight into a pro season and I went overseas. And if you've ever been overseas to Europe, you know that the diet over there is heavy carbs. So I had to kind of break my cycle, like, ooh, carbs are bad. And I was like, you know what? I'm over here, I'm starving. So I'm going to eat all the carbs, bread, pastries, rice, you name it, they had it all. And I was eating it, all the other athletes were eating it, so I was like, okay, I'm gonna give it a shot. And the crazy thing was, I was running in a meet in Switzerland, and I go to lunch, and they had like pasta, like a pasta bar set up for us. And I was like, so is this all that we're getting today? And they were like, yes, pasta. And I was like, okay, pasta. So I ate pasta before a race. I had never done that in my life, and I've always steered clear of pasta. Anyway, I go to warm up for my race. I had amazing energy, probably because 2 to 3 hours before I had a bunch of carbs, and so my body was just using that for fuel to get me through warm-ups. I didn't have the best race, but I felt great, so that was a positive. Anyway, did that whole summer of track as a pro. It was hard. I went overseas 3 separate times, multiple races. I got my butt handed to me a couple times, but then there was a couple races that were good. So it was a good learning experience for me. Then 2019 fall, training for the 2020 season, which was for the Olympics. Everything was feeling good. I was eating a lot more food than usual, just higher carb, where before I wasn't eating as many carbs. But still just wasn't perfect. And then indoor season started 2020, January. I was running pretty good. It wasn't like amazing, but I was running well and I had good energy. I felt good. I was in shape, ready to go. And then bam, pandemic. Everybody knows what that looks like. I don't have to get into that. So immediately I was like, okay. So does this mean no Olympics? We now have nowhere to train, nowhere to lift, couldn't use any facilities. Meets were canceled. I mean, you name it. It was just craziness. So that's when I decided to move briefly to Paris, Texas, where my husband grew up, just because I knew I would have access to a track and a weight room. And that at that point, the Olympics were still on. So I was like, I need these places to be able to train. So I left, trained daily. I was in communication with my coach daily. He would send me workouts. I would do the workouts, give him feedback, and then bam. I think in April they decided no Olympics, canceled. So then I'm like, well, what the heck am I training for? Like, what am I doing? Like, I'm just gonna train every day and kill myself, run myself into the ground. I don't really want to do that, but I kept on. That's also when I decided, you know what? This would be a really great time for me to experiment and really nail down my nutrition. So I had seen some ads for Macrostax and I was like, that's a bunch of BS, whatever. I'm not gonna eat that much, like that's so much. But then I caved. I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna try it. My energy just hasn't been great. So I downloaded it, plugged in all my information, height, weight, age, that I wanted to maintain my weight because I was training hard at the time still. So I just wanted to maintain and get enough nutrition to get me through workouts. And I read the numbers and I'm like, 250 grams of carbs? I don't think so. I literally laughed. I was like, what? I have never eaten that many in my life. And then it also told me 160 or 150, I can't remember the exact number, in protein. And I'm like, whoa, like that's way more protein than I'm used to eating. And then the fat's fine. That's a pretty easy one to hit. I think it was like 60 grams because I love cheese, that kind of bacon, sausage, those kind of things. So that's when I reached out to a friend who does bikini competitions. So she knows how to track her food and macros. And she was like, listen, like, I know it seems like a lot, but trust me, like your body will thank you. And she was like, definitely start out slow. Don't just immediately jump into it and eat 250 grams like that day. Just slowly work up to that amount just so your body can get used to it. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna do it because there's nothing going on, no meets. I'm just kind of training just to stay in shape just in case there's a meet. So I started tracking, and I was just like, wow, I was never getting enough protein that I needed, and I surely was not getting enough carbs that I needed. So the first couple weeks, I felt a little bit better, but really after 2 weeks, that's when I started noticing. I was like, wow, like I feel great. I have so much energy going to practice. I'm still like, I'm not dead after practices, and then the next day I feel great. Like I'm recovered because I'm actually giving my body the fuel it needs. And so I was like, wow, like this has been amazing for me. So then I started promoting it to other people because I'm like, other people need to know about this because we're told so much, don't eat carbs, they're bad, stay away. Like, yes, some carbs are bad, like chips, those are fried, that's not a good thing to choose. French fries, not a good option, but sweet potatoes, whole grain breads, fruit. There's so many things that have really great carbs, and that was the fun part about it, is I was able to experiment and really find like snacks and recipes that works for me. And then that's why I want to share it with you guys, because it's something that helped me so much, and I just want to help you guys realize that, like food is fuel. You need it. You need carbs, you need protein, you need fat. Don't ever completely cut out carbs. Like, that is literally your body's fuel. And in Macrostax, it really helps you nail that down. And they actually have a nutritionist within the website that you can talk to about questions that you have, because at first I had a lot of questions because I was like, I'm not eating this many carbs. And they just helped me and gave me literature to read on why it's important and why you need it. So yeah, that's just a little bit. Oh, and the huge thing I forgot to say, I did a DEXA scan back in 2019, and body fat was low, muscle mass, I didn't really have anything to base it off of, so I was like, okay, whatever. And then I got a DEXA scan after I had used Macrostax for a year. So I did gain weight, but it was actually muscle mass, because my muscle mass went up 5 to 7%, and then my body fat went down from eating more food. So, I mean, if that doesn't tell you something, then that's crazy. And that's another thing, like sometimes the scale can be disappointing, but if you're in the gym and you're working out, like you're making gains. And if you're eating the proper amount of protein and carbs, you're making gains. You're probably gaining muscle mass, and that is a great thing because muscle mass takes the place of fat. So don't get discouraged if you ever get on the scale and you're like, oh my gosh. Definitely take pictures. I know progress pictures can really help you see differences in, especially women, like just seeing the way you've put on muscle mass and whatnot. But I hope this was encouraging, and I hope that you gained something from it, from my experience with nutrition. But yeah, give Macrostax a look, see what you think, and if you have any questions, comment below.